Here we go. Let's do this.
We've got one life, one shot. Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? Addicted to Betterment, a podcast to inspire us to keep going, to try something new, to dream, to think big, bigger, to overcome. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Man, today is probably one of my favorite days of being a podcaster. You know, when you start out doing something and you have these dream visions where you're like, man, when I reach the big time, I am going to do this thing. Well, today is that day. I have probably, no offense to my other guests, but my favorite guest ever today on the show. And welcome to the show, Deseri Garcia, one of my favorite humans. And I gotta tell you before we get started. So I remember the very first time I met you. I had heard of you. It seemed like in my circle of friends, everyone that I was friends with knew Des except me. I had not met you. And you hear all these things, and in my mind, I'm like, there's no way she's that great. It's not possible. And the first time I met you, you and KB, and I shook your hand and I gave you a hug. And I'll tell you what, in that moment of giving you a hug, I knew instantly, I mean, in that second, this was a special human. This was a very, very special human. And man, that's been a few years ago. And I will tell you, just the time since then has just proved that to be true over and over, amplified times 100. And the opportunity to have you on my show today is awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your talents and gifts and time with us today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. The DGs are in the house. And I have to say, David, same. Like when I knew you came into Nikki's life, or she came into yours, wanted to meet you. Like, who is this dude? I got to know this guy. He must be pretty amazing. And then when the two of you launched Addicted to Betterment, I'm like, well, I'm addicted to Betterment. So I love this podcast and love the work that you guys are doing. So the mutual love and admiration and respect flows both ways.
Well, thank you, man. It's such a rich honor to have you on the show today, and I'm so excited to talk with you about one of my favorite topics. But help me understand what you do with Vita Aventura. It's a company that you own, and explain to me what you do through that.
You know, simply put, David, I help individuals and teams for their greatest impact and effectiveness. And I think there are a lot of different ways that we can do that. And the way that I do that is through coaching, team development, team building. And also I'll mention the retreats that Amy Woodall and I do. So all of those really fit under the umbrella of what Vita Aventura is.
Thank you for saying that correctly for me.
That's the whole, the beginning and the end of my Spanish.
Okay. You just mentioned in the first 2 minutes of us talking, 3 of my favorite humans. So I'm talking to you. You mentioned Nikki and Amy Woodall. So boom. And right there, you just knocked out 3 of my favorite humans on the episode. I don't know what I'm talking about. But it's interesting. I was reading through and where I wanted to get to with this is everything that I was reading about what you do at helping teams and helping coaches, helping leaders, I mean, high level executives. It's interesting because you start everything with, you got to work on yourself, which to me sounds like addicted to betterment through and through. And it's one of the reasons why I love you and why I'm so excited to have you on this show. And it's one of the reasons why you're so impactful. And Des, I will tell you, obviously I'm a fan and I love being around you because of how you are as a human, but man, you are high impact. And as I was reading through a lot of your stuff, I think one of the things that I hear regularly is, you challenge people and encourage and support to work on themselves and to get better. My first question is elementary, but man, what got you so passionate about just growing and working on yourself? Because it's obviously work. You're an amazing human, but what got you started on that path?
I think everything happens for a reason, first of all. And I have just had the blessing to be like have people in my circle who really influenced and encouraged me to work on myself. So like that first and foremost, I was the, kind of person who found myself in the self-help section of the bookstore a lot, and had just shelves full of self-help stuff. And actually that started self-help books, I should say. That started because back in the day when I was in corporate America, I had a boss slash mentor who said, if you want to be successful, learn as much as you can about yourself and people. And I took that to heart, and then had another very significant person who came into my life and challenged me to take time every single day for self-development, personal development. And this person challenged me and said, I don't want you to leave your house before you spend 15 minutes reading, watching, or listening to something that makes you a better person. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, Randy, you don't understand. I already get up at like 5 a.m. to run. And I said, we're talking about like, getting up at 4:45. And he's like, and he just looked at me like, are you nuts? Like, really? He's like, we're talking about your self-development. And I took that challenge on. I said, I'm going to give it 30 days. And that was in 2006. And I haven't stopped since. So those two people made a huge, huge difference in my life.
Yeah, I want to continue down this path. And the reason why I wanted to go down this path is as I was thinking about this episode and Des, 35 episodes into Addicted to Betterment now. And this is the first one that I remember having a little butterflies, a little nervousness. Like, man, I might be in over my head on this one. But the reason why I want to talk about this and I want to dig a little deeper is because right now, as I know you and have known you for a few years, you always carry this very centered, grounded presence about you. And it's like it doesn't matter what seems to be happening in my life or in the world or whatever. I know if I talk to Des or if I run into her or see her at something, man, instantly I'm going to feel that grounded energy that you just carry with you. And so as I was thinking, man, if there's a way on this episode today we could share that journey and the habits and the things that you put in place to get to the person that you are now. Because in my mind, this is what all of us strive to be when the world is chaotic and, situations are challenging and curveballs are thrown at us. And that's life, right? I mean, that's what life we're all living in and will continue to live in. If we can all get to that place that you're at now, I want to just continue down this path of how you got there. It's incredible.
Well, how you say that, David, is very humbling because I don't feel like I'm at a place. I've got a long, long way to go in my development and journey. And it's all, to me, it's a practice. I try to stay, if there's anything I try, and I say try, if there's anything I aspire to is to remain grounded in my practice. So I mentioned earlier this, 15 minutes of self-development. When we make that commitment to ourselves, we enter the day as different people. Like you can't go into the day being the same person that you would have been if you just roll out of bed and do your thing. So I'm very, very grateful for that. That 15 minutes evolved into a lot of awareness about different things. So and I'll mention to your listeners, I have a practice that I do every single day. It's called TSRW, and that is short for This Shit Really Works. And I can tell you the whole story about that. But what I'll say is that my self-development journey turned into a lot of different insights about what high-performing people were doing to have grounded days, to influence the things that they were creating in their lives and the direction and intentionality. And I remember years ago reading the book The Answer by John Assaraf, and he was talking about vision boards. And I read other books about I'm an athlete, lifelong athlete, have always known about the power of visualization and the power, Tony Robbins talks about getting into state. So I'm reading and listening and watching all these things. And at the time, David, I was training for maybe my second or third marathon. And I had run a PR the year before and qualified for Boston. And I 100% give the credit to that PR to the fact that I spent time every single day visualizing the race I wanted to run. And what was wild about that is I'm running the Chicago Marathon on streets I've never, ever been on. But because I spent 18 weeks training for this marathon and visualizing just a few minutes every day, I'm running on these streets like, whoa, this is so weird. I feel like I've been here before, and I hadn't. Because of that visualization, and because I noticed myself, I imagined being in the zone that entire race. I just ran the socks off that race, and it was because my body had already been there. My mind had already been across that finish line with a personal record. And so, and we just had the Olympics. What are all these athletes talking about? I knew I was going to win. I saw myself. I felt it. I visualized it. So I was like, wait, duh. I know how powerful this is in my physical life. Why am I not applying the same practices to every aspect of my life? And, that's how TSRW was born, because I manifested or visualized or whatever you want to call it, the partner that I have in my life. I have grown my business because I've felt and seen it and imagined what I wanted it to be year over year. Just the relationships that I have, the richness that I have in my life. I'm blessed to be able to travel and do amazing things with friends, the family that I have, and the health. All of that is very much a part of my intention and what I want to have be. So I'm there first, and then it happens, if that makes sense.
It does, man. So friends, I'll be the first to convert. Let me be the first to tell you, I actually have a hat that I wear every single morning. Nikki will tell you that I literally wear it every single solitary morning. A hat that says TSRW. It is actually part of my morning routine, and I'm a hat guy for anyone who knows me, and I'm very much an energy hat person. If I'm going to a certain thing, I just wear a hat that for me fits with what I'm doing or trying to accomplish or whatever it is. If we're on the boat, I wear a certain kind of hat. If I'm going out on a date, I got to look a little more cool and got some more swag or whatever. But
You do have a strong hat game.
But I wear that hat because for me, it gets me in the mindset. It's my reminder that this really works. So yes, I have a TSRW hat. Friends, anyone who wants one, you can let me know. We'll make them available, and all funds will go to Deseri Garcia. How's that?
And we'll pay forward those funds. We'll donate it to
That's right. Yeah.
some amazing organization.
So you talk about the visualization that you do. Do you really focus on feeling the moment as well? So you mentioned the Boston Marathon. I've driven through Boston and walked the streets of Boston. I don't know if that counts the same as running the Boston Marathon, but in my mind, I'm thinking if you did that well, you visualize it. Describe to me kind of how you felt the run and tried to feel the emotions, or maybe the being tired or those feelings of exhaustion, whatever. How did that go? Did you do that?
So it's interesting because my daily practice, and I'll talk about what the elements of that are. It's kind of a it like put together with bubble gum and chicken wire. It's like, oh, like I think that aspect would be good. I just put together this kind of formula for my daily practice. The feeling place is about I borrowed from Tony Robbins. He's like, get into the feeling state of already having those being or doing those things that you already, aspire to do. And so if like I was imagining, let's just say that perfect race, well, I hadn't run the race, but I certainly knew what it felt like to be in the zone. So I just took that feeling of being in the zone and magnified it. And I say this often with my coaching clients. I'm like, you can imagine like one of the most blissful moments of your life, and you can apply that to, let's say, a tough conversation that you need to have, and imagine feeling that same way as an outcome of the conversation. So you can borrow these like experiences and other feelings that you've had and apply them to anything that you want to, visualize or imagine or feel about. Does that make sense?
If let's kind of break this down for someone who's listening and says, "Man, that sounds powerful," and I want to try it. What would be some practical steps for that piece right there to start your morning and get in the habit of visualizing, feeling? Can you give me some practical steps to share with people that maybe someone's never done it and that sounds a little woo, which me, Des, I am all woo, but what's some practical steps that you'd give for people to try that?
Yeah. So here's one simple step that I would recommend to anyone. Just, start here. And that would be gratitude journaling. Start your day. First of all, get a journal and have it be your gratitude journal. Like only good stuff goes in. And every day, just simply write down 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for. And I recommend writing it down because cognitively, that's impactful for us to put those words on the page. So that would be step one. And then I'll share my process. It actually ends with gratitude. I start with meditation. And so I start with grounding myself. A lot of people say meditation is hard. And I think many of us think that because the assumption is that I'm supposed to be able to quiet my mind. And that's not the definition or the intention of meditation. The whole purpose of meditation is to de-stress your body. So when you are sitting in a quiet place and you notice your mind has drifted, that's actually a good thing. That's meta awareness. It's like, oh, I'm aware I've drifted. And then when you come back, that's the equivalent of going to the gym and lifting a weight. So you're building up your meta awareness, which is a good thing. So, spending that time, it could be focusing on your breath. You might focus on a mantra. I started meditating, eyes open, and I just focused on the flicker of a candle. I lit a candle and when I noticed my mind had wandered from the flicker, I just came back. So meditation for me is step 1. Step 2, I get into the feeling state. Because I know if like conjuring up that state of happiness and joy or bliss, I'm pretty sure once I have or be or do anything I want, it's going to feel like that. So sometimes I might just like look over at Bella, our dog, and like just the joy she brings me. And I'm like, that's it. Like, and so I just kind of marinate in that feeling of having what I want. Then I spend time visualizing. And sometimes, David, I just, take an aspect of the life I will be living when whatever it is that I want to have come true. I just kind of like watch a movie or a snapshot of that. So I'm in this feeling state, visualize, just like I did for the race. I visualized. Some days I would say, hey, I'm just going to visualize mile 9 to 14. And I just feel like, oh my God, I'm in the zone. I could run forever. This feels so easy. Look at the folks around me. They're, that are running and everyone's cheering and, my legs are just turning. So I'd visualize whatever it is that I want to have. And then I have affirmations that I love. And so I'll say my affirmations out loud. And then the last thing that I do is I'll write out my gratitudes. There are some days, David, I do that in 5 to 7 minutes because I'm like, oh, I got to get up. I got to go. And some days I spend more time, 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes.
That's amazing. I tell you what I'm excited to talk about based on everything you just said. So everything you just said is so powerful, and it's amazing how it works in your life. What is most profound about you, from what I know, is your heart to help others do that. And I have multiple examples. And so you and I have not really had a chance to catch up in a while. And by the way, I miss seeing you regularly. So recently, not too long ago, I was going through a challenging place in work and business. And I reached out to you and said, hey, can we have lunch? And you and I met up for lunch, and we got talking about my struggle, and you started asking me these questions that was like, I don't remember them all specifically, but David, if you could do anything in the world and money didn't matter, what would it be? And you just kind of kept diving in, and honestly, some of them made me uncomfortable because I didn't know the answer right then. And just a rich conversation that I left fired up, my wheels spinning based on our conversation. And it's interesting because right now, at this very moment, while I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm right in the middle of pursuing basically where I landed from that conversation. And it's the most exciting thing I've ever literally been a part of in my professional life. And I think back, to that conversation, I was just, when you're in a state, and I know that every single human listening to this today can resonate with this, when you're in the state that the storm is swirling around you and you can't see. You're trying to clear your mind and make the right decision, and you don't know why things are happening the way they're happening, and you're just, like, what in the world? And so you and I met, and we had this conversation, and here I am. I wear the hat. I believe it, all the things, but this is actually happening in my life. Like literally right this moment, not yesterday, not last year, not 10 years ago, right here while I'm sitting here looking at you, talking to you. I am in the middle of TSRW happening. It's the most exciting thing I've ever been a part of. And it's really when I got kind of started casting my vision on what could be or what I wanted, or, that sort of thing. And so that's just me. And the thing is, Des, every single person that I talk to that knows you in some form or fashion, they have their own story. Oh my gosh, do you know Des? And of course, I'm like, oh, yeah, she's my favorite human, and I feel like I'm her best friend. And interestingly enough, they feel like they are your best friend. And everybody I talk to feels like they're one of your best friends. I'm like, wait, I thought I was your best friend. Anyway, it's because of the impact that you have. And I want to, it's one thing to use this practice to make your own life better. That's admirable, and I would celebrate that. But you go the extra mile. You take it further, and you have this heart and passion to help others do that. Where does that come from?
Well, I mean, David, you just defined the whole reason why I'm on the planet. It's to help others see their greatness, see what they're capable of. That to me is as juicy gets. And so for me, that's when I'm visualizing like the life I want to have, the biggest component of it is making a difference in the impact in the lives of others. And so I'm like over here celebrating the fact that that's how the name TSRW came up, because I had a client who called me and they're like, you're totally going to believe, but you're not going to believe what's happening. And they said exactly what you said, David. They said, the thing like that I've been working on, like I'm in it. And I'm like, yeah, same. That's how the name came about. I looked around and I was living the life that I had imagined. And I was like, oh, this shit really works. I was almost afraid to say it. And so I live for celebrating you and seeing that come to fruition. That's the whole reason I'm here on the planet.
Yeah, incredible. And man, I think of other examples that I have, and I'll use my wife as an example. My wife knew you before I did, and had told me how amazing you were and all these things. And of course, me being skeptical, I'm like, it's just not possible. She's not that great. Come on. And then here I am, and I've run into so many people like that. But you and your friend Amy Woodall, who's also my friend that you mentioned earlier, equally amazing human. Well, I don't know about equally, slightly less. Sorry, Amy. But anyway,
I would say more so amazing.
but you guys put together a retreat for women. But I remember specifically one of the events that she went on, and I took her to the airport. The trip to the airport was stressful because she was just in a really bad place. I didn't enjoy the trip. Honestly, I was a little bit grateful when she got out of the car and was like, man, I can't wait to see you right now. You are in a bad place. She gets out of the car. I help her get her luggage out, and she walks into the airport. And I breathe a sigh of relief, and I'm like, whew. And she went on that trip with you and all of the other ladies, and I know it's quite a few, probably 25, I'll guess, or something like that. And I would hear from her throughout the trip, and things were great, and she was having a great time. And I could tell as her energy shifted as we talked, and all the amazing things that she was experiencing. And Des, I will tell you, I picked her up from the airport. And when she walked out the airport doors and got in the car, and I got out of the car and greeted her with a hug, it was a different human that I gave that hug to. And the profound effect and impact that you and Amy and the heart that you guys have. And tell me just a little bit about that retreat and the impact that it has on that. Because as I'm sitting here just talking about the impact you've had on me, and listen, I wear the hat, so I'm a believer. I'm not just saying this because I'm just, I've experienced it in my own life, the impact that you've had. I've seen it firsthand, the impact you've had on my wife. I have many women friends that have come back and they wouldn't miss it for anything. So tell me a little bit about what got you into that, your heart behind that, and what that is.
Yeah. What got me into it from the very beginning, David, was having had the pleasure to participate in some pretty transformational work and retreats myself. And, Amy Woodall, I freaking adore that woman. Amy and I have been involved in a mastermind for a number of years. So I could go on and on about the impact that she's made for me personally and professionally. And I know you know that, like you have firsthand experience of, and I so appreciate all the great things that you've said about me. And I know Amy's done the same for you. It's kind of the tribe that we roll in. I knew that I wanted to collaborate with Amy. And I think we were sitting at my dining room island, and I said, I've always wanted to do a retreat. She's like, me too. And I'm like, let's freaking do it. So, of course, we couldn't have done it without Sarah Reuter at Elevate Travel, because Amy and I we're not the logistics or the planning. We'd still be sitting at my island. So it came out of a passion for the work. And then I will give, like, the magic that happened for Nikki and the other women that have been there. It's because of the collective consciousness. These women come with very different intentions about what they want to get from the retreat. I mean, very, very different gets. Some of them are like, I don't know. Right. So they come in like, I'm just like here. And because they are intentioned and amazing women, like that collective and the contribution they make to one another is really the magic. I'll never forget, after our first retreat to Costa Rica, Amy and I were like, whoa, like that was amazing. The women who showed up are very different than the women who are leaving. Just yes, do we have framework set up, transformational work that they do, yoga, meditation? Yes. And it's really what they bring. So we did retreat number 2 to Tulum, and it was like, okay, well, let's see if that was just a one-off. Boom. Same thing. Little different twist. We're just in a different place, little different group of women, slightly different. We had a lot of alumni, and all of them like huge transformation. And so that's when we were able to look at each other and say, okay, we're on to something. We are onto something. So it's like the things that we're talking about, David. When individuals and then groups show up with intention, and you don't even, like, I'm just here to, I don't know what it is to get, but I'm intentioned about, like, I'll walk away with something. Magic can happen.
Well, that's I do want to clarify. Thank you for clarifying it for me. But Amy Woodall is one of the most amazing humans I know as well. So certainly, yeah, crazy impact, the two of you together. But Well, I can tell you my wife will certainly be on the next trip, and anybody that knows listening, if you're a husband and you want to do something really special for your wife that you will benefit more from than she will, send her on the trip. Trust me, I promise you will thank me later. You can hug me, kiss me on the cheek, whatever you want, but yes, you will thank me later.
Thanks for that endorsement.
Yeah, well, it's not an endorsement. I'm a believer. I would ask you to please let me send my wife, because I just know the impact that you guys have is awesome. Um, and I mentioned before how you just carry this centered presence. And if you could leave our audience with 5 action steps to stay centered, grounded, and really experience TSRW, experience that for themselves. Because man, if we help 5 people on this episode experience real life TSRW for themselves, that would be incredible. How would you help somebody with the time we have left, and we're not in a big hurry, but how would you help someone go down that path for themselves to really embrace and experience TSRW?
I know I'm biased. I'm gonna share like some of the components of my same journey. Number one, listen, read, watch. If it's not 15 minutes, do 10. Again, if you start your day focusing on you, your personal development, your self-development, I just don't think you can go wrong, right? You will start your day a different human being than if you didn't. Notice, listen, and watch to what resonates for you in that development, and that's you're starting to create your path. And I'm going to stay really simple too, David. I'll go back to the gratitude practice because I say this because I think for a lot of people it might feel like a lot when you hear the steps to my process, and people have created their own. And I know that when we have gratitude and that wholeheartedness for what, like, God, what's the quote that I heard recently? The definition of heaven is a list of all the things that we have. And the definition of hell is making a list of all the things we don't have. I'm paraphrasing that, but like when we can look around and be deeply appreciative of what we have, that's a way of saying, and I'm not saying that it's about getting something, but that's a simple way of saying, yes, more of this, please.
That's good. I tell you what, I read something recently, Des, that it is impossible physically. Our brain cannot, the scientific, the wiring in our brain. I'm not even going to pretend like I know how that all works, but I read that physically we actually cannot be grateful and angry at the same time. You cannot be grateful and anxious at the same. Our brain actually can't do both at the same time. You cannot express gratitude and have all of these negative emotions. It's just your brain cannot do both, and it's
I can't think of a moment when I have, so I believe that.
and just the simple practice of starting the day with gratitude. And you have certainly impacted me in that, and I've heard stories about how you just stay in this place of gratitude, and it's impressive, and it's interesting because if you can stay in gratitude even in the struggle, even when it's like everything seems to be going against me and I'm swimming upstream and wow, I'm climbing up the hill versus flowing in state, and if you can just get in gratitude, it seems to just shift everything. And why is that? Why is that? Why would you tell me that is?
Well, I think there are lessons in the struggle if we're willing to look at it that way. And I'll go back to something I said very early on. I think things happen for a reason. And I believe that reason is for our unfoldment as people. So even the tough stuff, the challenges are there to teach us something. And so that's, to your point about like even in the struggle, I think there are nuggets in that. I mean, have had struggles and relationship problems and, friendships that have gone astray. And, I go back to, okay, there must be a purpose and what's the reason and the lesson for me. And I believe that we are supported in that way versus, oh, it's here to tear me down as a human being and tell me that, whatever story that we're making up about it.
That's incredible. Des, I know that my wife is looking forward to the next women's retreat. What's a couple of things that are going to be highlights of this trip that I can look forward to for sending my wife?
My gosh. It's the transformation that can happen. And it is so much of it comes because of the people who are there. And what I think is really interesting, David, is we have women who come to the retreat that are not groups of women and leave going, whoa, I've got a sisterhood. So if you are a woman who's like, I don't know about groups of women, we can change we're not even looking to change your mind about that, but I think the women on the retreat will. So the transformation that can happen through that intentionality, number one. And then the second thing is, imagine how powerful it is to say yes to you and then dedicate that time. There's like this, like, I almost can't describe tangibly what that means for each individual woman. And when you say yes to you, and you experienced it, David, that ripple effect across the people closest to you, the ones you care the most about, and then beyond, it is phenomenal.
Wow. That ripple effect that you just described, that's it. That is it. And while I love that you do this for women, and I love to give you and Amy a hard time, it's kind of half joking, half not, but about wanting to go myself. Man, that ripple effect and my passion for Addicted to Betterment is, men showing up as better men. And I will tell you, it's just one thing that fires me up. I'm thinking, man, if every husband I knew would, you just described the power of a woman saying yes for themselves. Imagine the power of your husband or your spouse or whatever saying yes for you and saying, hey, you deserve this. You go. I want to build you up. You deserve this. The ripple effect that you have on my life is so important. And it means so much to me that I want you to go because I know that you will come back. And the ripple effect that you just described, that is, if I can inspire a man to say, any husband that I know, to say, bro, I want to do that for my wife. Because listen, it's selfish. I'm not even going to pretend like it's it's an unselfish act. It's not. It's for me because I'm going to benefit more than anybody in the world. Because I know that when she comes back, her cup will be full, and it's hard to pour out of an empty cup. And sometimes a lot of women try to do that because they're just sacrificing a lot for all the
Exactly.
things. So, Des, thank you for the impact that you have on me. I actually truly only have a handful of people in my life that impact me and that I just respect, admire, and love as much as I do you. And thank you for the impact that you have on so many people that I know. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, David. And I think I'm just holding up a mirror and reflecting back to you that, the impact you've had on me. I mean, it is like literally the same, like just in terms of just the benefit that you've poured into me. So I'm wildly grateful for you and for Nikki and for A to B.
Oh, thank you, man. You are Addicted to Betterment, Des. Thank you.
Thanks.
So you just listened to this episode. Now, join us in being addicted to betterment. Please subscribe to the show, share with your friends, tag us, and please take a moment, leave a review. Yeah, we do want your stars, but we really want the feedback.